Welcome, everybody, to Your Money Path with Mike McGrath. I'm your host, Mike McGrath. Thank you for joining us today. I have a special guest to talk with us today through the next hour, talking about our financial priorities, especially as it relates to debt, which I know being in January, right after the holidays, sometimes is a scary time for folks as they get those credit card bills coming through. And start looking forward to the hopeful tax refund. So I thought it'd be a good timing to put that together. And again, the idea of the whole show is really to help people make better decisions about their money. Whether we talk about things today like about debt, we've talked about charitable giving, and that's bled, of course, into not only how we use our funds, but also our time and our talent as well. Just wanting to make, if you will, the world a better place through making better decisions with our financial resources. So today, again, I've got a very special guest calling in with us, Mary Hunt. Mary is an award-winning and best-selling author of several books, but her primary book, Debt Proof Living, has sold more than 1 million copies. She has a newspaper column, which is syndicated, Everyday Cheapskate, and is joined by hundreds of thousands of readers every single issue. She spoke on personal finance, a lot of that centered around, obviously, the issues of debt and the derivatives of that, on shows like NBC's Today, Dr. Phil. She and I were joking that she's now graduated to join the Money Path with Mike McGrath after Dr. Phil. So, no, but we're happy to have her here and wanted to talk through her story and through her book. And hopefully on the other side of that, be able to provide some resources for those of you listening or watching as you address some of these issues in your own life. So, Mary, I really appreciate you joining us today.
Oh, my pleasure, Mike. So nice to be with you.
Yeah, so now Mary has an interesting story, as you can read in the book, Debt Proof Living, what got her and got you, Mary, into this whole process of writing books and newsletters and effectively creating an online community, helping people, I think more broadly, if it's safe to say, making, like in my show, what I'm trying to do, helping them make better decisions, obviously starting with, unfortunately, the financial holes that we sometimes dig for ourselves. Would you mind maybe sharing kind of how you got into this position?
Wow, it's a crazy, crazy story. Someone like you, Mike, who've gone to school to become a financial planner and have all of those degrees and all of that knowledge behind you. Oh my gosh, I did the complete opposite. It all starts for me, and I don't want to go back to the day of my birth, but we'll go back pretty far. Honestly, because I've analyzed this. How in the world did this happen? But I remember when I was 11 years old, I made a decision out of my own discomfort with life. I was a very miserable child. I wanted to get away from home, and the only way that I could really make myself happy was to dream of the future, and I made myself a promise. I said, when I grow up, I'm going to be rich. Just like that, in my mind, I could start living vicariously into the future of how wonderful this was going to be. So there I am. I've got 7 or 8 years until I can leave. I didn't run away. I was a very, very good girl. I was a, very compliant child. But in my mind, I was planning because I knew then I would be happy. I was miserable poor. I thought my family was poor. I was miserable poor, so I would be happy rich. And it in my mind, it worked. I would just pretend being rich, and all of a sudden I was happy. So I found the path to happiness. So I got through those teenage years, and my parents allowed me to go to school, to go to college.
Okay.
It was so far away from home, and I was so happy about that. I ended up not far from your front door there. I went to what is now called the Masters University, but that many years ago it had a different name. It was called Los Angeles Baptist College, but that's where I went to school. And you know what? The day I landed on campus, I felt like my life began because now I was grown up and rich. Now,
which is saying something when you're a college student, right?
I'm a college student. I don't have any money. In fact, I don't even know how to handle money. No one bothered to tell me a thing, but, they told us at orientation we needed to go into town, into Newhall. There was like 2 banks, maybe 1 or 2. Open a checking account. You needed to be able to have, to handle your money.
Right.
I did. I got a checkbook. It didn't come with an owner manual, but I'll tell you something. My roommate invited me to go shopping at the Topanga Canyon Plaza Mall, which I'm sure it must still be there somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
Went there, and I wish it hadn't happened. I look back now, but I realized that it was a turning point in my life. It was one of those critical decision points when I made the absolute worst decision of my life. And it seems benign now, but this lady, and I think it was Robinson's. No, I know it was Robinson's. It's not there anymore. My roommate is very, very wealthy. Her family was from San Marino, so you know about that. And so we're in there, and I want to buy something. I had never in my life made my own personal, independent decision with money. I had a checkbook, and I had that good girl, bad girl conversation. What if I do? Well, maybe if I can get away with it. I didn't have any money. I think I opened the account with like $5. So
oh my goodness.
My campus paycheck was not due for like a few more days. But I made the decision to go ahead and try to write a check, even though I didn't have the money in the bank, to buy something. I don't know what it was, but I'll never forget that. I was scared to death. But I have to tell you something. She didn't call the police. She didn't call the bank to say
right, you didn't go
money.
to prison, right? Yeah.
No, just the opposite. She was so kind, and she invited me to come back and shop again. Oh, my goodness, I couldn't believe this.
You've now arrived, right?
I have arrived. I felt like the richest woman in the world, and it felt, I got to tell you, I got to be honest, it felt fantastic. I was doing the absolute opposite thing I should be doing as a girl who's just now fresh in a Christian college, but it didn't dawn on me. To me, I learned something that day that would stick almost forever. That as long as I could get away with it, it was okay to have things now and pay for them later. And so I really jammed the next few days to figure out how to get my campus paycheck, get it to the bank before that check were to be collected. Now, I really thought I didn't have a mind that could handle the difficulty of managing money, but obviously I came up with my own little plan, and it worked. But I promised myself I'd never do it again. It was just way too stressful. But guess what? I couldn't lose that good feeling. And so I did it again, and I did it again. And I started a pattern of life where I got what I wanted, and I figured out how to pay for it later.
Right.
That was on a very small scale.
Yeah, but when you extrapolate that to a large scale, it gets problematic,
right.
doesn't it?
And this was long before there were credit cards even. I mean, college students, are you kidding? A credit card? No way. And so it was on a very, very small scale. But the principle is still there today. I mean, that is, we want to have a college education before we can pay for it. But anyway, that went on for the entire 3.5 years I was at the school. I graduated a semester early, and it was stressful. It was horrible. I worked so many jobs to try to clean up my messes. But the wonderful thing is this. Something wonderful happened. I fell in love, and I got married. And I got married to, you ready?
Yeah.
A banker. Yes, I did. I married a banker because that was on my list. Doctor, attorney, banker.
Oh, my
that
goodness.
would be the professions that would make it possible that I could really, truly be rich. And
That's right.
during our months of courtship, did we ever talk about money? Never. Did he have any idea that I had this penchant for spending money before I had it? That I bounced checks higher than anybody in the whole world? That I paid so many overdraft fees? It was crazy. But I have to tell you, I honestly, truly believed that my life was going to start again for a second time as a rich woman.
Right.
Because I wouldn't have to worry about car trouble anymore, and I wouldn't have to worry about money. I would be married to a rich man. Well, now the story isn't quite so funny from here on because obviously he didn't make as much money as I thought he should. I didn't know what that would be.
It's all his fault now, right?
Right. But something happened. About 3 weeks after we were married, I told him that I thought we needed to get a credit card because this is now the time when credit cards are starting to come into vogue. Mm-hmm. And he, as a banker, of course, said, absolutely no. He was a very, very conservative banker. Why do you need a credit card? And I convinced him, Mike, ladies, listen to me. We do have influence over our men. And I convinced him that I needed it in case of emergency, which I believe is the reason everyone gets their very first credit card, right?
Yeah.
That's why I got it, just in case of emergency. Well, it wasn't the best credit card in the world. It had a red star on it and belonged to the Texaco Gasoline Company.
Oh.
Yeah. Can't get in trouble with that, right?
Of course
wrong.
not.
So wrong. So wrong. Because in my mind, the money that, the cash I was to use to put gas in my car to get to work was now my money because I could use the credit card to get the gas. Now, I'd never discussed this with my husband, but I'll tell you that first month when that bill came, he about had a heart attack. What? yeah. Well,
What are we doing, right?
that started a long journey for me because I have to be honest and tell you that the pleasure I derived from buying things and paying for them later was so much greater and so much more joyful than the pain of having to deal with him at the end of the month.
Mm.
It was pain versus pleasure, and the pleasure was unbelievable. And I started to realize that if one credit card got me pleasure, two would get me more. And
Yeah, right.
before he knew it, before anybody knew it, before I knew it, I was gathering credit cards, almost like collecting baseball cards, just to see how many I could get.
Sure,
because those were the days when that was before the law that they couldn't just send you a credit card. Back then, I mean, every department store would send you credit cards in the mail.
Right.
All you had to do was just use them. But, I got to tell you that this was a very, very serious time in our lives because during the first 12 years of our marriage, this is what happened. We bought a house, and we gave birth to our two sons.
Okay.
And I started having more emergencies, birthday parties, clothes, school,
Sure.
shoes.
And everything's an emergency at that point, right?
Everything's an emergency. And I wasn't working. I mean, I stopped working. I thought my husband should be able to handle all this.
Yeah.
Something else happened over that time is that I ran up a terrible amount of debt. And another critical decision point in our lives was that first time that we could not pay the entire payment on those cards in the single month.
Mm.
And that's the credit card companies want.
That's right.
They want you to go over that threshold where you cannot pay it and you opt to the minimum monthly payment, which was deadly. So at least two times during that 12-year period, my husband, bless his heart, oh my goodness, back then we didn't call it refinance the house. We took out a second mortgage.
Okay.
And we took out a third mortgage on the house. But we did that in order to pay off the debt and to get back to point zero so we could start saving and so we could get back on track. But Mike,
yeah, but you didn't solve the core problem, right? Because you still have that.
That's right.
That
that's
penchant
right.
to spend.
And I didn't recognize the core problem, and my husband didn't know how to help me.
Okay.
I don't think he realized at the time just how difficult it was or how serious. I mean, I've never been addicted to substances of any kind like that, but I think it possibly is down that same road.
Sure.
Because there was a physical response, and I think that is one of the elements of an addiction. I really truly believed I couldn't help myself.
Yeah, there's
but
like an endorphin rush, I would imagine, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. But I always figured a way to get out of it. And I was entrepreneurial, and I was a music major. I was a pianist, so I would teach piano lessons, and I would do babysitting, and I would do everything under the sun that I could to raise more money, to try and pay the debt before my husband found out about it. That was always my thing. Well, I'll just use the card one more time, then I'll get the money to the bank before he finds out.
Well, that must have been hard. At some level, must have been hard on the marriage in those years.
Oh, yes, on many levels, I'll tell you, because all of a sudden, there's trust. There's no more trust.
Yeah.
How can he believe me? And so we started to drift apart, not physically. I mean, I didn't move out. He didn't kick me out. He probably should have threatened to, but he never, ever did that. But I'll tell you something, that it was on September the 17th, 1984, and I'll never forget it as long as I live. I had convinced him prior to this that banking was never going to cut it, that he needed to leave the bank. We needed to get into something that would pay us the money we deserved and needed for our lifestyle. So we got into a multi-level marketing thing. It was a company out of Florida who promised us we'd be millionaires by Christmas.
Right.
Yeah, and that was in April of 84, and it was in August of 84 when we lost it all, everything. The $22,000 I begged, borrowed, and found that we could get into this horrible scam thing. But anyway, we lost all of that. Now, he had no job. He had left the bank. I had no job. I hadn't had a job for a long time. We had no unemployment because we had not been laid off from any job.
Right,
we had nothing, Mike. We had nothing.
Yeah,
we didn't have savings. We didn't have any credit. We didn't have anything. And my husband was a broken man. He went from being a tenured banker to being a future millionaire to being unemployed with a wife who won't stop spending, and we weren't even speaking to one another. We had these two little boys, and I got in the car, never forget it was a Saturday, and I headed up to La Mirada because that's where my in-laws lived up there.
Okay.
We lived in California, by the way. And I don't know why I was going to go there. I think maybe I wanted them to just pat me on the head and say, "Oh, everything will be okay." I mean, they had no idea what was going on. I got there and there was no one there. They weren't home, but I had a key and I went in. And I just dropped. I dropped into the very first chair that was there, and I proceeded to have what I would call a meltdown, a physical, mental meltdown. I ended up on the floor in the kitchen with my face on the floor. Thank goodness my mother-in-law was a great housekeeper. And there I was, and I was out of hope. There was nowhere to turn. And I got to tell you, Mike, I had a spiritual experience. Where do you turn when you're out of hope? We're such stupid humans. We try to do it all ourselves. And it's not that I had grown up never having an experience with the Lord, with God. I was a preacher's kid.
Right.
I was in church all the time. I knew it all in my head. But for the first time in my life, I was out of solutions. See, I could always find a solution myself. And I think for the first time, too, I looked up, and it was as if God just shone a very bright torchlight down into my life, showing me the dark, ugly, horrible things that I had done. And I think it was the first time I realized it was me. It wasn't that I grew up in a poor family, which I don't even know today if we were poor. I felt we were. It wasn't that my husband wasn't rich. It wasn't that I hadn't gotten a big inheritance. It wasn't any of those things. It was me. And it was a horrible, horrible, ugly person that I was. I was deceitful. I was lying. And I laid there. How can you ever forgive me? My life is over. And I started to remember the scripture that I learned as a child just came running through my brain. And as I remembered these things, that God is faithful and just to forgive us, that He will give us a future, that we need to trust in Him, all of those things.
Right.
Somehow that day I got home, not without any pain, but I'll tell you what, I knew I'd been forgiven, and I knew I had hope. And those were the two things I needed so badly. So that was a lot of years ago. And I got home, and it was about another 10 or 12 days before my husband we even spoke to each other. I mean,
oh, wow.
Not out of anger, just out of what do we do?
You're kind of in shock mode almost.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. But I got to tell you what, from then on, it's just been an absolute journey of miracles. I went back to work. That wasn't my plan. I told the Lord I would do anything to get out of the debt. Getting a job wasn't on my list, but that's
anything but that, right?
And we switched roles for 2 years. He stayed home with the kids. He became Mr. Mom, and I went out and I learned how hard it is to earn a living. And that very first paycheck that I got, I got into real estate, which I knew nothing about, property management.
Okay.
I got offered a job just out of the blue, but I'll tell you something. I never knew how hard it was to earn a paycheck. And I came home, and I go, you know what? Things are changing around here.
That's right.
First of all, this was my first step on the road to solvency. All right? I'm going to pay cash for groceries. I don't know where I came up with that, but I knew that the credit cards and the checkbook were my evil side. I gave those back to my husband, and I said, if we don't have the cash to pay it, we're not going to eat. Well, that led to me becoming a shopper. Wow, I didn't know how much groceries really cost. I mean, I never paid attention before.
Right.
I'd go to the store every single day just to get something for dinner, But,
well, and it's easy with a credit card because you don't see it or feel it, or it doesn't.
Well, yeah, back then it was the checkbook, but checkbook, I was evil, deadly with the checkbook.
Right. Cash, you literally are seeing this leave your hand, right? That's a different story.
It is. Let me draw the comparison here again to pain and pleasure. With a checkbook, you write out a check for $100, hand it off. It's just all pleasure. To me, you get what you want, you paid for it. Yeah. It didn't seem real. What causes pain is when you have to hand over $10 bills and part with them. It's painful.
Yeah, this is so many hours of work leaving my hands.
My theory is that you've got to have the pain and the pleasure at the same time. If you give the pleasure with playing with a credit card or checkbook, you're not experiencing any of the pain until you have to make the payment
I think somewhere in that path in between is what we would call value, right? So you actually you get what you want, but but that too.
Yeah.
That too.
Yeah. But anyway, I'll tell you something else that came out of that promise, and my husband and I started talking, and I'm telling you, this is what brought us back together of one mind, because my husband was very conservative. He's a money manager. I mean, and for me to now submit and to surrender to a more authentic way of living and managing money was just remarkable. And we agreed between the two of us, if we ever saw another dollar in our lives, we were going to give away part of it first, give it away out of gratitude that we even had anything. We were going to save part of it forever,
right? Because
we never wanted to be in that position again of being so needy and having no way out. And so that's what started. Little by little, I happened to take on the role. I promised him I would. I called every one of our creditors, every credit card company where we were behind on every single one.
Okay.
And I talked to them. Now, can we do that today? It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. Banks and all have changed, but I did that. And I promised them that I can't do much, but I'll send you $5 on Friday. And those were the tiny little promises, the truthfulness that started to grow in my heart, where I started to live as a truthful person. It sounds so simple, doesn't it?
It's sort of like almost, a lot of times I'll make analogies to someone who's trying to get in better shape, right? Sometimes it's small promises by just getting yourself to the gym or not having that, extra cookie or something. It's some small things that start to build on themselves. But
exactly.
I tell you, I guess we're cutting here to a hard break, but I'll bring you back in just a second because I want to transition that into some of the things that you've been writing about, first and foremost with debt-proof living, but how that built into sort of this community that just seems so encouraging to so many people. Because like you talked about, like how you would save some, give some. That's kind of flushed out, I think, in a very practical sense. So we'll jump to that in a second. But right now you're listening to Your Money Path with Mike McGrath on KHTS 98.1 and AM 1220.
Do you ever listen, but you're not really paying attention? Sort of like what you're doing to me right now. This is Alex Urbina, your advanced life coach specialist. One of the most frequent questions I hear is, what is a life coach? Well, tune in every Friday at noon to learn the value of having a coach and listen to a live coaching session on the radio. Right here on your hometown station, KHTS.
Do you ever wonder, am I on the right path? Is my money working hard enough for me? I'm Mike McGrath, host of Your Money Path on the fourth Wednesday of every month at noon here on KHTS. I'm a certified financial planner and partner at EP Wealth Advisors, a fee-only wealth management firm here in Valencia. To find out how you can get on the right path, visit me, Mike McGrath, today at epwealth.com/Valencia.
It's time for your special event. Kelly's Wedding Garden is your perfect spot. Kelly's has transformed weddings, anniversaries, company parties in the Santa Clarita Valley for decades. They have it all. Delicious food, a beautiful setting, plenty of room, and a team of professionals that can handle it all. Kelly's Wedding Garden just off the golf course in Friendly Valley. Weddings, bridal showers, bar mitzvahs, company parties, anniversaries, class reunions. Kelly's Wedding Garden is your Santa Clarita oasis for outstanding, memorable events. Discover how you can transform your event at kellysweddinggarden.com. That's kellysweddinggarden.com.
Hey there, it's Tori with your hometown station weather. Sunny and 70 degrees most of this week with overnight lows in the upper 40s. For anything and everything Santa Clarita Valley related, go to hometownstation.com or find us on social media. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at KHTS Radio.
Your hometown station.
Well, welcome back, everybody. This is Mike McGrath, the host of Your Money Path with Mike McGrath on KHTS 98.1 and AM 1220. We've been talking with Mary Hunt, an award-winning author of Debt-Proof Living and the founder of DebtProofLiving.com. And we're going to get into that in just a second, but it's interesting, Mary, as you were talking about your story, ideas just in my own life or that of folks who are close to me, had similar experiences. I remember one of our founding partners, a gentleman by the name of Derek Holman, told me he had no interest in finance when he went to college. But his first day on campus, he said one of the tables, they always have during enrollment, they have all these different things to sign up for committees and clubs and things. He said one was this credit card company, and he thought, And he said I needed a new T-shirt because I only had one, and they had a free one. So I figured, well, I'll sign up for this card to get the T-shirt.
Oh my gosh.
And he said, and it wasn't a lot, but he said, next thing I'm like, wow, I could go buy, fill in the blank, and it's okay. And so he started down that path, and so and he realized quickly this what you had just described, right? What a trap that is. So he was able to get himself out of it even while he's in college, and he said, I'm committing myself right now. I'm switching my major, everything to get involved in this because this can be something where, I mean, and you've said this in your book, credit cards have their place in the sense of convenience and things, but it's a very small place, and we tend to think of it.
Yeah. And it's for a very financially mature person.
Right.
I want our readers to, I'll do this very, very quickly.
Sure.
It was, started living like this, frugally, paying back the debt, not using credit cards at all. I mean, I was on a cash basis for 10 long years, and our lives went on. We bought another house during that time. Our boys became teenagers and all. But I'll tell you something really, really changed. And I had run up, you ready? I had run up more than $100,000 by the time I hit the floor of my mother-in-law's kitchen that day.
Wow.
Now, if you translate that to 2019 dollars, I think it's probably more like 300,000 in the same equivalency. And by the end of 10 years, we had paid back all but $12,000, which pretty remarkable. In that time, my husband and I had started a real estate company. So I want people to know, even though you're deeply in debt, you're getting out of that big hole, it doesn't mean life has to stop. It has to be a method you're getting out that is livable. You have to be able to live your life, raise your children, enjoy life, and do all of those things because those are valuable, wonderful years. But in 1992, we were hitting another recessionary period here in Southern California. I've moved since then. And I was looking for something that I could do on the side to raise money to pay off that last $12,000. Sounds crazy, but I decided to write a newsletter. Now, this was before the internet, so I suppose it was
mailed,
like
right?
A forerunner. Yeah, U.S. mail. It was a forerunner of maybe a blog.
Okay.
Because that's what it was, but it was once a month. It was a monthly newsletter. I wrote one issue of it, and I told all my friends that I'd give anybody a free sample. If they'd take it, I was looking for subscribers who would pay me $12 a year to get my newsletter for 1 year. That was $12,000. I mean, that was my business plan.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, guess what? I mean, here's where the miracles just start pouring in. Guess who got a hold of this thing and showed the editor where she worked, a gal from the L.A. Times. They came out and did a story on me, and I'm going, what? How can you do a story? I've only done one.
Oh, my goodness.
We want to hear your story. So that was in the Times. That just completely launched my newsletter. At the time, it was called Cheapskate Monthly, and I'm sure some of your listeners will remember that.
Yeah.
And so that is what launched this thing. And all I wanted to do was to tell people we were getting out of debt. Here's how we're doing it. Here's some funny tricks we do. The shopping with cash, all of that thing. Don't go to the store every day. By then, I had gotten as far as 6 weeks. I would only grocery shop once every 6 weeks.
Oh, wow.
I had come up with some amazing tricks and ways to do this that were not killing my children, that we still liked each other and had good meals. And so it started like that. And the next thing, guess who called? Oprah. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
And so it started me down this path, and by then a book publisher called and asked me to write a book. I go, I don't know how to write a book. They go, this is the truth. They go, oh, don't worry, you don't have to know how to write. We'll find someone to write if you can't write. We just need your book.
Oh my gosh.
Mike,
we just like your story, and we'll craft it as kind of the message, right?
Exactly, how God has used that in my life. And turns out I didn't know how to write. I didn't know that I had that particular talent.
Interesting.
But I'll bring you up to date. So far, I've written 26 books. The book that you refer to, Debt Proof Living, which is the name of our organization now, we kind of changed it because it's more than being cheap. It's more than being cheap. It's got to be something more than that. You've got to live in a way where you are not creating debt. You're debt-proofing your life, where you're giving and saving and got a method and a plan involved. And so out of that, people started asking me questions. And the more they asked, the more I had to research. And from there, I learned, and I still have never been back to school to learn the real way you do financial planning, but we've come up with a simple method for ordinary people to manage a paycheck. I think that's what a lot of us just never learned to do.
Well, that, and I think there's a lesson in there for the financial industry in that I think we tend to make things more complicated than they are, or at least make them sound more complicated than they are. There is sort of a simple truth behind all of these things, especially when you are writing about these subjects. And that's one thing I would say to listeners today and those who know Mary through the newsletter. I read constantly financial material. I'm the nerd who actually takes financial books on vacation because I actually find it interesting. So I've read a lot of them, and I was saying this off air a second ago, but typically, per the industry, it's either overly academic or it's sort of hard to grasp in terms of application and those kinds of things. And I found that the Debt Proof Living book to be very practical in the sense that you could take this up, you can put the book down after you read the last page. Heck, you could probably do it while you're reading it, but you could put the book down and just start that day and just start into this process because it's kind of a track to follow that's doable. And you said earlier, it starts with small things, right?
Exactly.
Let's resolve not to use credit cards.
Yep.
Yeah. And
but
go from there.
The very first step, you cannot spend money you haven't earned yet, which is just such a fundamental truth. But it's one that we don't believe, but it's true. You have to spend less than you earn. Unless you're willing to do that or get to the place where you're able to do that, it's not going to work, and that's the absolute first thing. It was so hard for me.
Sure. I think it's hard for a lot of people.
Odd thing, it sounded odd, but no, it's absolutely true. And that is the first step. Just making that decision in your mind. So I'm going to get to the point where I no longer spend money I have not yet earned.
Well, I think some of the hardest things we need to learn in life, and this is about our bill pay, as you would say now instead of checkbook probably, but about our bill pay or about our Outlook calendar is the ability to actually say no. Say, no, I'm not going to buy that fill in the blank, that new car or that whatever at the department store, or to say no to yet another commitment because something else is not is just more important or more applicable to your life at that moment. I think that's a hard lesson to learn. But I think that's you start with that. And again, get back to my metaphor, my analogy of weight loss. A colleague of mine always says, it's real easy to lose weight. You just eat less and exercise more. It's actually doing those things, which is the hard part. It's not hard to understand. It's just hard to actually do. So I think in this case, you start with something small and you go from there. I tell you though, I've had your brother, your baby brother, David, on this show. And it was wonderful. But your brother, he came at these financial matters from sort of a theological, philosophical point of view, which was great. And I thought it was very helpful. I've had a lot of comments on the time that he was here. And I've gone through that in talking with people and teaching classes even on sort of these concepts and on, in our case, maybe the theology around money and those kinds of things. Some of the feedback I get from that is, that's great, I agree with you or whatever, but how much should I save every month? And so I've always been hesitant to well, there's not really a rule that everyone should follow. I always shy away from general rules of thumb and this sort of thing. And what I found kind of refreshing in your book is you will sort of go there, but it was okay to go there once in the context that you put it in. So you would say, for example, and it kind of goes back to, I think, what you were talking about when you and your husband started sort of rebuilding your financial lives here. Well, hey, we're going to give so much, we're going to save so much, and we'll live on the balance. And you say in the book, hey, I'm going to give 10%, I'll save 10%, and the rest is what I can spend. And if I don't have it, I don't use it, right?
Yeah. Let me tell you about those two concepts. I know from my own life, and I have confirmed that over the years since all of this has started, is that we have two basic fears. I think humans have two basic fears when it comes to money. We're afraid that we're going to run out of money, and we're afraid we won't be able to have the things that we want. So those two things are fear and greed.
Right.
Giving and saving are the silver bullets. They are the antidote. They are the way to kill those dragons in your life, those horrible monsters, fear and greed, that cause us to do crazy, crazy things. Because, all right, let's take giving. When you give away 1/10, and I tell people, if you can't give 1/10, give 1/5. Can you give Can you give $1? Give it away out of a feeling of gratitude for what you do have.
Yeah.
Then work your way up. Because I'm telling you something. it will kill that monster greed because we learn how wonderful it feels to give away. Give something to someone with no strings attached. I'm telling you, it is one of the ways that you're going to be able to learn to start living below your means, which is the whole point of all this. Then the other enemy that we have is fear of running out of money. Well, you know what the antidote to that is? Money in the bank. Money in the bank changes everything because we lose that fear. All of a sudden we're making choices not because we are afraid that we're not going to be able to afford it or whatever, and so we use credit to get it anyway. Now we're making choices. No, I don't want to spend that money. I'm not going to spend that money that way. Right. Having money set away in the bank will change everything. So giving and saving are the two ways to get rid of your monsters in your life that are going to do everything they can to keep you from living below your means. Those monsters of fear and greed. So that's where the giving and the saving come in, and I'm a living proof of it. Yeah. I'm telling you what, once we started putting money in the bank, well, no, it didn't go in the bank first. We didn't have enough to even open an account, but money in the sugar bowl,
right.
know, money in the drawer, all of a sudden there was a calming effect. I've got money. I'm choosing not to spend it. Wow, it was just a great, wonderful feeling.
And I would camp out on that for a minute because I think in my experience dealing with just hundreds and thousands of folks over the last 20 plus years, that is it has so much more to do with your life than just what your balance sheet looks like and your net worth statement looks like. The idea of that peace of mind, it's hard to put into words and to quantify, but it's so powerful. And I think the result of what you're just talking about, I would use the word contentment. If we're content with what we have.
Absolutely.
And it could, and like there was another author I've read, Tim, I always pronounce his name wrong, but I think it's Maurer, Maurer. And one of the comments he had in his book, very simple line, he said, wealth management, he's talking about the industry, and he said, wealth doesn't have to equal more. Wealth should equal enough.
Just enough. That's right.
And I thought that was such a short, pithy way to put that. But it's this idea that you can be Bill Gates, or you could be, worrying and struggling through the next, couple of weeks. But if you start building with these principles, the amount doesn't matter. It's living with the amount that matters, and that's a powerful lesson.
And another principle I learned, just drilled into my head, was that I wanted to get to the point where we buy what we need, we want what we have. We have so much abundance. When you look at our lives compared to the other people around the world, and there's so much going on in the news, and we see, oh my goodness, if I could just stop yearning, buy what I need, want what I have.
Well, really there's a couple stories in your book I thought were funny relating to cars. And, if the neighbor comes home with a new SUV, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, it's a really nice SUV. Honey, what do you think about us getting, and I laughed as I was reading it because I'm like, I've done that.
Oh, my goodness, so have we. So have I. I look back and, I'm still the same person I was all those years ago, but I have new tools in my life. I have new resources that do not include going into debt. And I want to tell your listeners before this is all over, we started out $100,000 in debt, wondering what in the world we were going to do to get our next meal. Now, over the years, we have not become wealthy at all. My husband and I are both self-employed. He has a real estate management company. I don't know that we'll ever retire. Maybe we will. I don't know. But in those years, we've not only paid back the $100,000 completely, we paid off our mortgage on our home in Southern California 4 years ago.
Wow. And
we sold our house for $900,000. We came to Colorado. We bought a house all cash for half that amount. We have absolutely no debt in the world, none.
That's wonderful.
We don't owe a dime to anyone, even on a car or anything like that. And I look at that and I go, wow, because it took me 12 years to make the mess. It took us 13 years to pay it all back. That's 25 years down the tube. We were back to point zero 25 years.
Right.
And still, it's not too late. That's what I want people to know. It is not too late. Learn these principles. It is such a simple plan, debt-proof living. It's a woman who learned this on her own, not going to financial school. It's a formula and a method that really does work. And I would just love for your listeners to read my book.
Yeah, and I would too. And real quickly, I'm going to do a little plug here before we have to jump out for just a quick break. So a couple, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Mary, but well, obviously the book is called Debt Proof Living. But you can go to debtproofliving.com, or as I would call the application site, everydaycheapskate.com, which is kind of a hoot because it's not just about the ideas and the lifestyle of debt-proof living, but it's the uber practical ideas of how to clean off. I think there was one today when I pulled it up, how to clean off a caked-on pan and stuff like that without spending any more money on another cleaner. I mean, it's really practical.
Yes, let me tell you where that came from. Debt Proof Living, by the way, I want your readers to know, is a membership site. It is a membership site. We are building a new site. We're in the throes of that. And it used to be all one website. But the thing is that I'm a huge believer that the best way to increase your income is to reduce your expenses. It's hard to get another job. You know, getting another job means that you're going to have to get in another tax bracket. You're going to have to wait for that. You got overtime, whatever. But if you can reduce your expenses, you've suddenly got money that you didn't know you had. You've already earned it. It's tax-free. And so that's a big proponent of debt-proof living, the practical side, how to get there. And so we were spending, in the newsletter especially, a great deal of time on all these fantastic ways to stop spending so much money. So I started writing a blog. We called it Everyday Cheapskate, which is, you know, that's what we call ourselves. We're saving time and money every day so that we're not going into debt and we get to live the life that we enjoy. And so that's where that came from. And I was contacted by a syndication company who takes my blog posts, which I do every day, and they syndicate them and they show up in print newspapers around the country.
Oh, okay.
So it's gotten to be quite a big audience. We have about, we think, a circulation of about 1,000 readers, a million readers every day. So it's a huge community, and it's free. People, come and join us at everydaycheapskate.com. Just sign up to get it in your email box every morning, and there I'll be. That's
fantastic. I think that, well, I tell you what, we got to run to a break real quick. I'm going to drop that right there, but then pick it up when we come back. Again, everyone, you're listening to Your Money Path with Mike McGrath. This is Mike McGrath at KHTS, AM 1220 and FM 98.1.
Your building sign is essential in getting customers to your location. Feathers can help get your business noticed. They walk you through each phase of your building sign project, providing special attention to detail and quality. Feathers will give you a sign you can be proud of. Your building sign will draw customers in instead of having them drive by. Feathers on Soledad in Canyon Country, across from the Edwards Theater. Or go to feathersphoto.com. That's feathersphoto.com.
Olive Terrace Bar and Grill is the hottest new Mediterranean fusion restaurant in Santa Clarita with unique delicacies like seafood right off the boat, mouth-watering prime steaks, artesian sandwiches, delicious pastas, and tasty kebabs. Unwind on their cozy outdoor patio at their weekend champagne brunch, full menu, and weekly specials at oliveterracebarandgrill.com. Check out their full bar and happy hour daily specials in Valencia on Copper Hill and Newhall Ranch Road by LA Fitness. Olive Terrace Bar and Grill, delicious food seasoned with love.
Men, are you feeling tired, stressed, or just don't have the energy you used to? Did you know this could be related to decreased testosterone levels? Luckily, there's a safe, effective solution. Weeder Prime helps support healthy testosterone levels with clinically tested key ingredients. Just 2 capsules of Weeder Prime each day can help change your mood, energy, focus, body fat, and lean muscle. Feel the way you felt 10, 20, even 30 years ago. Rediscover your Prime with Weeder Prime. To find a retailer near you, visit WeederPrime.com. That's WEIDER Prime.com.
The Art Gallery of Santa Clarita Artists Association, located in downtown Newhall on 6th Street between Railroad and Main, features local members' original artwork with changing exhibits every 2 months. Purchase affordable art for your home or as gifts. Open Friday through Sunday or by appointment. Artists wishing to join the SCAA can visit santaclaritaartist.org, come to our free monthly meetings at Barnes & Noble, or stop by the gallery. For upcoming shows, check us out at santaclaritaartist.org. We make visual art visible.
Santa Clarita's hometown station.
Now FM, 98.1 FM and AM 1220, your hometown station.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Mike McGrath with Your Money Path with Mike McGrath and my guest, Mary Hunt. We just left it off talking about just kind of the application of what we've been talking about debt-proof living. And I wanted, if in our last time, a little bit here together, Mary, if you don't mind kind of getting into, like I said earlier, that you, in your book, and on the website and the blog and everything, willing to go into, formulas and really specific things, which oftentimes we don't get. We just get concepts. And you were saying to me off air that the whole plan and the whole process of this, getting out of debt, staying out of debt, starts with the 80-10-10 principle, and then from that, how to actually build and organize, I would say in sort of summary, your excess savings. Can you elaborate on that for real quick for the readers?
Absolutely. The 10% that you save every single paycheck of your net paycheck, don't make it 12%. Don't try to do 50. You won't. That's not going to work. You got to start with 10.
Okay.
You're going to start building that. You might start with $1, and it's going to go to 10. It's going to go to 20. Eventually, it's going to start growing. You're going to get it into a savings account. Okay. Your goal is to save at least $10,000 in that account. Now, don't panic. This is what you need. We call it a contingency fund because it's a fun name, but it's really for emergencies.
Right.
It's for big, huge emergencies that usually send you to the credit card companies. The second principle is you are going to stop spending money you don't have by using credit cards. You've got to stop. If you can't pay that bill in full, the entire balance every single month, you can't be trusted with a credit card. You got to give it up.
Okay.
Give it up. Then you have to start looking at your requirements, your bills, your essential expenses, your optional expenses. I go into that in the book. That's where we're going to start cutting. And we're also going to set up something we're going to call your freedom account. It's just a savings account you're going to set up on your own. I'll teach you exactly how to do that. But that's where you're going to start saving ahead of time, a little bit every month, for those irregular expenses that really trip us up. I'm telling you, Christmas was my big one.
Right.
Oh, man.
It's like a one-time-a-year kind of expense or twice-a-year expense that you don't save for monthly.
And never, ever pay it off, yeah. So that's called our freedom account. And from there on, we're just going to start managing and cutting and having to live really frugally for a while. Well, come to everydaycheapskate.com, and you'll find a whole bunch of people doing that. And we are having such a great time sharing with each other how we do that, how we save time and money every day. I'm telling you, it is a simple process. Your debt that you have now, we're not going to go crazy with that either. I'm going to help you set up your rapid debt repayment plan where you're going to start just making your minimum monthly payments, which a lot of people say you'll never get out of debt if you only do that. Yes, you will, because I'm going to show you how to do that. As long as you're not adding anything new to that load of debt, we really can get you out. And, 24, 36 months, that's about how long it takes for the typical average family to get out of debt if you follow my plan.
Well, I tell you, and again, for those listeners and for those who follow me on the Facebook Live here through the radio station, I've read the book. I'm having my family read the book. It's called Debt Proof Living. And if you want to get it, obviously you can go to debtproofliving.com. It's available at Amazon as well. That's where I got it. And I would highly recommend it. And I would say, again, as a practical matter, I think thematically, it's the organization that you provide, Mary, that's great. Because I was reading along, yeah, I know. Maybe it's because I do this for a living, but I know I got this. And then when you started getting into the budgeting and how to organize it, I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that's a good idea. And then, and they start, and you actually, so if you think you're really sophisticated, like I erroneously do, or if you're just starting out, it's really just something that's easy to read. So, but I have to catch you on this one. I always have at least one fun question, Mary, before for all my guests, and for time's sake, I can't get through them all. But let me ask you, who inspires you, or in even past tense, has inspired you, but currently inspires you on this journey that you've been on, and now that you're sharing it with others?
Oh my goodness! I would have to say that there are people who are not necessarily into the money thing. I got to tell you that my brother David, probably my greatest inspiration. He probably, if he's listening, yeah, you don't know that, do you, David? Well, it's true, and I love you, my brother. I have learned a great deal from Dave Ramsey.
Okay.
Dave Ramsey and I started out about the very same time many years ago. He and I differ on quite a few points, but that's okay. There's a lot of room in the pool for
sure.
Lots of different thoughts and ideas. Yeah, I follow all of these people, all of these personal finance gurus and all, and I've learned so much from all of them, but yeah, that has really inspired me.
Well, it's appropriate that I brought up David as well as an example, because I think on our show, when I had him on here, was a good kind of laying about identity and led through a different path, of course, but to that same idea of just contentment. And I like the way you put it. So buy what we need and want what we have. That's a good way to kind of encapsulate that. So I think we might have time for one more, maybe. I got 2 minutes left. So if you could take back one financial decision that you've made in your life, what would it be?
Oh boy, that's an easy one. It would be that day in Robinson.
Okay.
Back when I was 18 years old, thinking that I could suddenly become rich, just snapping my fingers, I guess. I would like to think that if I hadn't made that wrong decision that day, that my life would have taken a different path. But on the other hand, I have to say that I am eternally grateful for God's redeeming love. I mean, talk about a story of redemption. But yeah, that's the thing. I wish that I would have never done that. Maybe I would have learned that you need to earn the money first before you spend it.
But then we wouldn't get to hear you talk about this great journey. So
it's true. See, this is the lemonade that made out of all those.
There
lemons.
you go. Yeah, there's another author I followed by the name of Carl Richards, and his backstory in essence was, he was a financial advisor. He was in my business, and in the big housing boom, he overdid himself and got into a home he couldn't afford. Drank the Kool-Aid, and in the process of it, lost the home. And so he felt, I don't know if he would say this, but kind of the implication was he felt embarrassed. And he felt like, how can I give other people advice when I've just got sucked into the same thing? And it was his father who said, it's exactly because you had got sucked into that you need to tell your story. And that got him moving from the financial advisory business like I'm in, advising clients, to actually writing and teaching. And so it's a similar story, but I'm glad he went through it. So we could hear his take on it like we got to hear yours, Mary.
Yeah.
So
well, I'm glad I went through it too. I mean, God has enriched my life in ways that I would have never ever dreamed. I set out to be a musician. And that didn't happen because this happened, which I couldn't be happier. I'm so grateful.
Well, Mary, I do appreciate your time. We're going to conclude here, and then again, if you want to reach her, go to debtproofliving.com. If you want to reach me, you can reach me at epwealth.com/Valencia. This is Mike McGrath on KHTS.